the class being lively. After this training, you'll be able to access the training materials from your portal at achlp.biz. If you go to my courses, I've admitted someone else. So if you go to my courses, click view presentation under the presentations column. You are able to, I'm doing several things at the same time. It's all right. If you click view presentation, you are able to view this particular PowerPoint at your own pace at any time. Not only for today, for a lifetime, as long as you are on our portal. Now, at the end of this training, the recording for this particular training today, number one, as we speak, it is live on YouTube. So you are able to view this particular PowerPoint at your own pace at any time. Not only for today, for a lifetime, as long as. So having said that, I want now to take this opportunity to welcome Mr. James Wanyama to take us through our training today. If you have any question, feel free to ask. And if you have any suggestion on how we should make it better, feel free to also give your feedback. Our next training will be next week on Saturday on emotional intelligence, especially during the era of COVID-19. Our trainer then will be Madam Catherine Wamwangi. I hope to see you there. And if you've participated in this particular webinar, the cost for that for you will be 2,000. So without wasting a lot of time, I guess we already are class full. James, you are welcome. Unmute your microphone.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for the introduction. I just want to say hi to everyone. I can see Ruth Mora. If you don't mind, just to acknowledge that you're there. Then on the other corner, I can see Deputy Director HR. I don't know the, but I believe she can mention her name.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jane.
Yes, Jane, how are you?
Very fine, thank you.
Welcome. I can see Eunice Njoroge. Eunice, how are you?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
Pleasure, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Then I can see David Makidimi from Mombasa.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Then I can see Austin Mwangi.
Morning.
Good morning. Then at the corner I can see B.
I'm Caroline Mwangi, not Austin.
Oh, Caroline Mwangi. Okay. I think your address is reading Austin, but I think it's the address of whoever registered the account. But Caroline, sorry. Okay, thank you for clarification. Then next, the lady in glasses, B. Mugera. Perhaps you can tell us your exact name.
Sorry, it's Betty Mugera. Good morning.
Good morning, Betty. Hi.
Hi, Betty.
Hi, Eunice. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Next to Betty,
thanks. Thanks.
Next to Betty, I can see Luisa. Luisa, you can see us? Unmute yourself and let's hear your voice, please.
Yes, I can see you all.
All right. Thank you and welcome. There is I can see we have Scholar down there. We have Mudaura. I hope they are there. Joseph, I've seen Joseph has chatted and said hi to everyone. You can see the chat right there.
Hey, Joseph.
Then we have Dirna, but I think Dirna is to be admitted. There is Evelyn Oliech. So I think then we'll still admit them so that as they join in, then we can continue with the session. All right. So perhaps I know we are well conversant with this with the Zoom technology, owing to the fact that the pandemic has made us to accept this change. You know, in life, what we've come to acknowledge is that change is inevitable. And as you can see today, we are congregating here or together through the Zoom as a result of the pandemic that makes it possible for us to interact regardless of the location that we are in. So that section on the charts, perhaps I think that's where then we'll be monitoring the section on the charts, where if there's any question, I'll be looking at it, and if need be, I'll be commenting on the same. So I'll be doing it concurrently. If there's any question that somebody is chatting and we're not able to hear them, then also we'll be able to respond. But all the same, welcome, and let's start our session. So today, we would like to look at or to share more in terms of leadership and corporate governance. But what I've done with my training today is that we want to delve more on how applicable our leadership today can enable us to navigate the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. So as much as we'll be looking at what is it that leadership entails, what we need to do, what sort of characteristics, the types of leadership styles, but our main emphasis should be the understanding that we are in a situation that requires leaders to emerge. There's an English proverb that says, cometh the hour, cometh the man. In that proverb, it talks about that we'll measure the aspect of leadership of an individual when that person is faced with a situation. And the situation that we are in dictates that we must come out strongly, we must reinvent ourselves, and we must perceive things differently so that we can lead from the front. And that will be the basis of our understanding, because whenever people are in difficult times, that's when you start thinking, you start scratching your head, you start asking people, how do we go about it? And the uncertainty that has been brought about by this pandemic is far off, because as you can see globally, people are trying to see how well can they manage their organizations, how well can they manage their lifestyles? Because currently, your lifestyle actually has a lot of effect on the way you work. Right now, we are looking at people who have lost jobs, people who are also going through the transition, people are already going on unpaid leave. But now you need to ask yourselves, at the kind of situation that we are in, how well can we navigate? Because it is a situation that we cannot run away from. Nobody can say that I want to migrate to Saudi Arabia. You can't migrate to US, because all these, whatever you think of, the situation is actually even worse than it is where we are. So I would request that we'll be doing some discussions. So I'll be doing a presentation, then along the way, I would request that we do, or we weigh in on some of the issues I'll be raising so that we make it as interactive as possible. Purposely because in training, I don't expect it to be just one-way communication, but it will be more prudent for us to share the experiences to see how well can we improve our leadership. Remember, leadership is dynamic. The kind of leadership that was successful 2 years ago or 10 years ago may not be successful today, and hence the need to rethink ourselves. So I have my slide. Let me share my slide right there. So as a start, I want you to look at the those faces that you can see. So my expectation would be, as you look at those faces, I just want you to tell me one aspect of leadership that you think that person portrays. One leadership aspect that that person portrays, or what evokes your mind when you look at, for example, the president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. If you see the other person right there, what comes in your mind when you look at them in terms of leadership? That's where I want us to anchor our discussion as we start. So I'd request that you unmute yourself, then you tell us, for example, if you identify one of them, just tell us about what is your thought about that person. So over to you, guys.
Betty speaking.
Yes, Betty.
Tapitha Karanja.
Yes.
To me, she's a very strong lady. She's a business-minded lady and very resilient.
Right.
And I admire a lot. And maybe also Chris Kirumbi, he is very innovative and also very business-oriented.
Wonderful. So there's the aspect of resilience and the aspect of innovativeness, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Betty. Right. Any other person?
David,
Yes, David.
I'm looking at Barack Obama.
Yes.
Inspiring, really inspiring to me.
So Barack Obama inspires you? Huh?
Yes.
Good. So looking at Barack Obama in terms of inspiration. Thank you, David. Okay.
I'm looking at George Washuri and thinking in innovation in bringing solutions that are locally relevant.
Solutions that are locally relevant from George Washuri. Yeah? Great. That is who? That is perhaps when you mention, then you tell us your name so that you're also able to follow.
Scholar.
Okay, Scholar. Thank you, Scholar, about George. So George, according to you, he's been able to bring about the solutions. Locals, usually we say that we expect leaders to think global and act local. So you can see a lot of innovations that has been necessitated by him or his ideas to bring about local solutions. Good. Who else has another opinion?
Okay, this is Jane.
Yes, Jen.
Yes, I was going to comment on the Mutahi Kagwe.
Yes.
And the way he's been very persistent in a crisis.
Yes.
And he's been very innovative in the way he has been presenting himself to the public.
Yeah.
I think he has produced himself as a leader.
The aspect of persistence.
Yes.
Good. So we are looking at persistence in regard to the CS health. Thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Gashero here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, Joseph Gashero. I'm looking at Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
This is one legend that everybody talks about, who was fearless, who could just look at the future with hope, and he was also very humble.
Good. So you're looking at Martin Luther King being a sign of hope.
A sign of hope for the future.
Yeah, for the future.
And
fearless.
For the oppressed. That is
for the oppressed, true.
Yes, yes.
Somebody who could stand up and say, enough is enough. This is not something that we need to go for. And he could actually carry along the people to his ideology. Good. Any comment on the presidents? I can't hear any comment on the presidents.
I want to comment on Maraga.
Maraga, okay.
Yeah, I have admired his resilience,
Yes.
appreciation for authority, but he's not afraid of authority.
Yes.
I think he has fought for for those who cannot stand for themselves.
Interesting.
And I think he has come out strongly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're looking at somebody who is also resilient. He's not afraid to stand his ground. He's not afraid to take a necessary step that he deems or his conscience believes is correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else to weigh in on another characteristic that you believe can emerge from these leaders?
This is Betty again. I think you have asked about the president, and I listened to our presidents of late in regards to COVID-19, and I felt some sense of accommodative being a leader, because he even not saying openly that he was torn in between. Do we continue rocking? Do we open? And for me, being a president, he had the powers to wake up and say, this is what I'm doing. But he said he consulted his team of advisors, and somehow I picked some good elements, characteristic about listening from others.
Fantastic, Betty, yes. So you're looking at a president who listens to the experts. Because as you say, if he was another president, he would say that we are tired and we want to open, and he will have gone ahead to open. But you can see there's that aspect of listening, which is a key component of any leader. Thank you. Well, anybody to talk about Steve Jobs? Or Trump? There's nobody here who admires Trump personality. Okay, so perhaps if you look at Trump, for me, I look at Trump, as much as people tend to depict him as somebody who is arrogant, but also he's somebody that is brave in terms of making decisions. I know he makes decisions and sticks with them. And in life, or in terms of survival in life, you must always be one that can make decisions and stick with them. You must be that person that is bold enough. You can rise to the occasion, as much as it may be an unpopular decision, but let people associate you with decisiveness in terms of leadership. That's the one thing that I usually admire from Trump, as much as he has all his other shortcomings. But you find that his decisiveness is what I admire most, because he can make a decision and stick to it. Then if you look at Steve Jobs, one thing that summarizes even all these leaders, if you look at them and from what kind of opinions that you guys have raised, you can see that for you to be a great leader, from what you've said, people being innovative, being innovative does not mean that you do it yourself. But it calls for, you've done a lot of engagements, you've listened to people, you've done your research, you've gathered information, you've done your analytics, and you're now able to determine which sort of strategy that you need to take. So in that perspective then, for you to be a great leader, then you must always, as Steve Jobs puts as his last point, stay hungry, stay foolish. That is a very strong point, in the sense that being a leader, you should not portray yourself as above the rest. You should not be a know-it-all, but you should be this person that consistently looks for information. You are consistently learning. In other words, you may have differences with other people, but the best way to do is give them an ear, listen to them. Assume that you don't know anything. Let us not be these people that will always tell you, I know what you want to say. So you rather keep quiet. But let us listen to the people. Let's hear out what they have. And you find that at the end of it, you find yourself as a leader succeeding. And that's where you find a manager and a leader, leadership and management. Sometimes there has that thin line whereby a successful manager must always have good leadership. But if you are a manager if you are deficient in terms of leadership, then you'll find that your trajectory in managing people will be faced with a lot of challenges in terms of how do you bring them on board, how do you share. And that's the reason why good leaders always speak last. Reason being, if you are the first person to speak, chances are the other people that may want to speak, we don't have a situation where they come and say, whatever I wanted to say is what the leader has said, but you need to give what we call a collective kind of discussion at the end of it. Meaning now people who have contributed, people who have raised their issues, people who have shared in on issues, people who have contradicted, they feel hard in terms of you leading them, or in terms of any corporate leader, any individual leader doing that. Now, the question I want to pose to you people is, does leadership portend a position? Does it mean that for you to be a leader, you must be in a position, in a particular position? You must have power, or what does that imply? And that's where now, as we look at that, as you think about that, then we need to distinguish between leadership, management, and governance. So normally, from our discussion, we know that leadership is about influence, but then this influence must not be coercive. We are not looking at influence whereby somebody comes to you and tells you it's either A or B, but we are looking at leadership whereby somebody articulates his opinion, and this person brings you on board, you get convinced. So meaning you willingly follow that kind of ideology without having been threatened or coerced in any way. That's the essence of leadership. On the other hand, then management is whereby you ensure that you are in charge of certain resources. So it's just a matter of putting together a particular structure that enables you to achieve a particular objective in an organization or even at an individual level. And one Peter Drucker said that leadership is about doing the right thing, whereas management is doing what? Things right. Yes. So what Peter Drucker does or summarizes is that in terms of deciding which action to be taken, then it has to be advanced by a leader. But when it comes to mobilizing or ensuring that you have the right resources and also the time frame within which this course of action needs to be achieved, that's when you bring in what? You bring in management. And we can relate that clearly with what the president did last week. So initially during the Madaraka Day, the president had hinted that he's going to open the economy, and people were anxious, everyone, and you could see even those memes that were all over. Some people, you could see them watching the news or watching the president's address. Others had just made fun of it. They were having bags, like they're ready to go and enjoy themselves. But you can see that now that hint that we're going to open already created some anxiety in the people. But now when it comes to management, that's when now the president as a leader had to consult the experts who will now talk about the repercussions of each of the course of action. What is the best action? What is the worst action? And what is the middle point that if we take, then it's going to have some effects on our livelihoods. And that's now where now management comes in. So if you are a manager, then you find that you may have a decision, but now this decision, you must carefully plan it. You must articulate it, give it a time frame, give it allocated resources, and monitor it to ensure that eventually it gives you or it leads you to the destination that you expect to do that. Then we have now the aspect of governance. So whatever leaders and managers do, or whatever the two component in terms of the ingredients of leadership and management, whenever they converge, then they're actually doing that within the scope of governance structures. So governance, we are now looking at that alignment between the actions that we are taking and the long-term direction that we want our general organization or our country to head to. And that's now the relationship between the three. So as much as we want, for example, as much as we are looking at how do we achieve our strategic plan, how do we achieve our agenda 4 in the country, now agenda 4 becomes the governance aspect. Then also we're looking at now how do we achieve that. But down there, we are looking at how do we move people, how do we bring people on board so that we are able to share a common ground, we're able to share the common objective, we're able to share a common effort so that we work together and achieve what we expect to achieve. So governance basically is that alignment in terms of where the board direction has set the organization to be. And you can see it as a set of boundaries within which now management and leadership has to operate. In other words, you can't wake up and say, we want to, today we want to start a new branch, maybe in Mombasa, or you can't say that we want to set up a new branch in Malindi because you've seen that you have a market. That has to be ratified, or it has to operate within, it has to be aligned with the board structures. And that's the essence of governance. And that's why whenever you need an approval, then you have to push that kind of proposal for it to be adopted by the board. That's where now governance comes in. So it's a very important component of an organization because there is that independence of the board. We expect the board to be very independent in its exercising of the roles. Apparently, in Kenya, we've also been facing a lot of challenges whereby the boards are not independent. Reason being, the problem started with the time we did the nomination of who occupies the board leadership, who are in the committees, so that at the end of it, we end up having puppets being part of the board. And in that case, then you are not able to create that independence of the board or the governance structure with regard to having the oversight role now to management and the leaders. In view of that, then we have a number of leadership styles that tend to integrate. Some of them, or the 8 of them, I've just highlighted this 8 because whenever we have discussions on leadership, we find that we'll always talk about democratic, we talk about autocratic, we talk about bureaucratic, laissez-faire, charismatic, servant, transformational, and at times also transactional. But if you look at all these leadership styles, people will always tell you that there is no one leadership style that is effective. Or you can't wake up and say that I think for this business, autocratic is the best. Or I think for this kind of arrangement, we want to go democratic way. You find that different people have advanced their different theories, ideologies, in view of in what circumstance do you think laissez-faire will work well? Because remember, you cannot achieve your results. You can't achieve your objectives independently or in isolation. You would need people, you would need technology, and you need an environment. Now, the environment that you operate in, if it's a competitive environment, then that will also determine, or it will shape the kind of leadership style that you'll have to effect at that point. The kind of technology that you're going to address will also have to be affected by that. Look at the situation that we are in today. And I'd like to get your opinions in terms of which leadership styles are you using currently now that we have people working from home? We have others alternating. They come this week, they come maybe after 2 days, others come weekly, others are permanently working from home. How do we, for example, how are you able to supervise them? And I would like to get some input from people who are supervising others who are on this platform. If you're a supervisor, or if you're just also you are an employee, and maybe you've been working or alternating between these two. You've been oscillating between working from home and also at the workplace. What sort of leadership do you think, or have we realized any dynamics in terms of leadership, or the leadership has remained the same as it was in January and Feb as opposed to now? Your input? Your input, guys, are we there?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I would want to contribute on the leadership style. Hello?
Yes, yes, we are getting you. Go ahead.
I personally am using transformational leadership.
Yes.
I have come to accept that the world is changing and everything has changed with the COVID pandemic.
Absolutely.
And I have transformed my mind from the normal leadership where I have to supervise on close supervision.
Yeah.
And I've accepted that I can trust them to work from wherever they are, provided their productivity is monitored and they bring the results. So I have transformed kind of my leadership to just trust that they will do the best, as I also put the laissez-faire in it. And just becoming a servant leader, I lead them from where they are to do what is right whenever I find that things are not working. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Like you can see now, you've had to come up with a sort of a hybrid system in terms of leading these people and to ensure that you get the best out of them. So this new normal means that we are operating in very unfamiliar circumstances that dictate that we must learn, we must adapt. If we don't adapt, then we will not thrive. Thank you. That was Betty, right?
This is Lois. Louisa.
Oh, Lois. Lois, thank you. Any other person with another opinion?
This is Betty now.
Yes, Betty. What is your take on that?
I would agree with Luisa on the leadership she has highlighted.
Yes.
And same case to me, but I'm also adding the first one, democratic, where we're having so many meetings to involve everybody to help us in coming up with the best decision. Because we realized as managers also in the office that if we just make a decision without involving others, and of course things have really changed and changed in a very high speed, we might be giving people decisions which might not work. So
yes.
I would also add on the first one, on top of transformation and servant, where the managers and senior management are leading from front, and also democratic, where we are involving other staff to give their views.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Betty. Any other response on that?
Mr. Wanyama, this is Scholar.
Yes, Scholar.
I might not be answering your question directly because I think Lois and Betty have said what I would have said. But at some point I was wondering, at what point do we talk about situational leadership? Because if there was that type or style or something, probably then that's what would be most applicable, because it helps us to shift from one to another depending on the situation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scholar, for that input. Ideally, as you can see, the reason I've not put situational leadership in that list is precisely the situation that we are in. Meaning, you can see we are oscillating. Somebody at one point, you have to exhibit bureaucratic, you have to mix with autocratic and democratic, so that at the end of it, is that the situation now determines at what point do you exhibit any of these leadership styles. And hence, the success of any leader, currently we talk about the success of any leader is a leader who is exhibiting situational kind of leadership, which is more of, depending on the choice of these, depending on the business that you're in, you find that you may have, for example, a combination of charismatic, laissez-faire, and autocratic. Or another person may have transactional, charismatic, and autocratic. But at the same time, you find that that combination can also be informed by the environment that you're in, and also the people that you're working with and the technology. And that's why it's not included, but it's a very good point. And I wanted to know, at the end of it, in fact, the question I was going to ask is, now that we are talking about situational, where do we place situational leadership? So thank you, Scholar, for that input.
Thank you.
Good.
Hi, my name is Joseph again.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to find out what is this license 5, because maybe it is one area that we are not aware of what it is, and then maybe it is where we fall in. The rest, okay. I can see the rest. Normally we apply them, but they always come on situations like they have just said. That for certain times you have to apply to be democratic. As for instance, if you have to do negotiation, things like that, that is what you call democracy, and you have to move stakeholders and things like that. Sometimes it is autocratic, that yes, this thing must be done, and it has to, some situations call for different scenarios of these leadership styles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perhaps I can mention that, laissez-faire is this leadership style whereby you as a leader, you've come to acknowledge that you have people that are independent-minded, people that are responsible, and people that can take accountability of what actions they do. So in that situation, or in this kind of concept, then you as a leader, you allocate resources and allow them to do what they do. But ultimately, you expect that they will deliver what you set out as a team to achieve. So it's more of a hands-off kind of leadership, where if I know that Joseph can work on his own, I just give Joseph what he wants. I have the expectations. I'll tell you in the next 1 month, this is what I want you to do. Make sure that you complete the project, here are the resources, and hit the ground. That's the aspect of leadership that laissez-faire. Yeah.
Very well understood. In fact, I think that is what most companies or most of us are doing, so that you trust that you just set goals, and then there you go. You just look at the results.
Exactly. So at times you'll find what becomes a limitation is if you don't understand also the kind of people that you're dealing with, because you may exercise this laissez-faire, not knowing that you have the X characteristic of people. You don't have the Y people and the X people. The Y people are the responsible, competent, experienced, while the X people are these guys that require a lot of pushing. You have, every time I tell you to do this, I'll find out, where's my report? Have you done it in this format? When did you come in? All that. So there's that aspect of close supervision vis-a-vis people that can work with less supervision.
Just to comment,
Yeah.
In fact, that's a type of leadership. You have to be very careful because it can cost the company resources. If you have the X type of employees, you have to be very. It is primed selectively. Like you have people you can rely off, you are sure of. Because if you give it to all employees without knowing where they fall, it can cost the company. And especially when you are dealing with projects where you're investing a lot, you need to be sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. You must be very careful. You must assess who do you do this. In fact, this is where nowadays even you hear people saying that they fear delegating, because you may have this person that you need to delegate, but from your analysis, they're not people that will be accountable. They'll not be responsible. Sometimes you find people are very hesitant in terms of delegating. All right. Anybody to comment on bureaucratic?
I'd wish to comment on as I comment on the bureaucratic,
yeah,
I would wish to mention that these leadership styles are used on various situations. I have not seen, so to mention a leader who uses one leadership style all through. In our day-to-day work, I'm sure there are times you use democratic leadership. There are times that calls for bureaucratic leadership. At times we also laissez-faire, even charismatic servants leader. Depending on the situation that you're handling and the kind of people that you're leading, you go for different leadership style. And in some situations call for bureaucratic leadership, where the things have to be done in a certain way, in a certain set way, for you to achieve what you want.
Exactly.
That would be my input.
Yeah, in fact, to weigh to what you're saying, you know, bureaucratic leadership is essentially, you have people who report to you. But you find, instead of reporting to you, they have gone to report to your senior. So in that case, they have broken that protocol, the bureaucracy that they are supposed to go through. So instead of them raising that issue with you, they go ahead and raise it with the top leadership. In that case, then that's where we question now, did these people or did this person follow the correct way, the correct procedure or the hierarchy of leadership? Good. Then we have perhaps transactional and transformational. Transactional and transformational.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think that transformational would more or less be like the succession planning that we normally have, so that you are transferring certain leadership skills to a second person who can also do that when in the absence of the first leader. It's a guess anyway. It's not that I know about it. I am yet to learn.
All right. Then transactional.
Transactional would then therefore mean that there should be some transactions that are coming in, and therefore I think should be some either between a client and a customer or something like that. I'm not very sure, but maybe something to do with two people or two groups of or multi groups. Yeah, if I may.
Okay, so is that Joseph? Huh?
Yes, Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph. Actually, maybe to just demystify what transformational leadership is, to just add on what you've said. Transformational, from the word transform, then you're looking at elevating people. You want to elevate them to higher levels. And the best example that sometimes we use is you and your children, or your parents and you. Your parents will always regard you highly. They're looking at making you to be better. So for example, in an organizational setting, we are looking at when people come into this organization, then we have that particular succession planning, we have the career planning, all that, the career development process and all that. So we want to see that this person, when they came in, they don't, within a period of time, they don't remain the same people as they came in, but we are looking at people who have developed their skills, they have developed their personality, they have developed their character. And you can always see that this is a person that has potential to lead, or this is a person that we can put in our plan for the future. Then on the transactional aspect, it is also married with the transformational, because when you join an organization, you sign a contract of employment. Now, that contract of employment means I'll not pay you if you don't meet your obligations, all right? So meaning the obligations that we have as employees and the obligations of the employer must always coincide. And when they coincide, then the person who is in charge of that, you being in charge of your team, you must ensure that these people are actually fulfilling the obligations that are stipulated with regard to their roles. And that's where people will always tell you that if you're not performing, then we'll not tolerate you, because meaning you've abrogated your role as in terms of transactions. Your transactional aspect, the obligations, you're not able to meet them. And therefore, this other party feels that they are paying you for what you aren't supposed to be paid for. That's where now this transactional comes in. I was just trying to weigh into what you've explained. Good, so that is it. But as you can see, all these styles, they cannot be applied in isolation. And the situation dictates how that has to be done. Okay, so what is the role of leadership? From those styles, then what is the role of leadership, or what is the role of a leader? And I have these 8 roles that are basically generic, but I want us to look at them to see what is it that we expect in terms of communication. What do they communicate? For example, why should a leader have the open workspace? Why should they enhance group activities? What is it with leaders when you talk about celebrations? What is it with leaders when you talk about open leadership? What is it when you talk about politics and the rest? So in terms of communication, we expect a leader to be one that is always communicating. Right now in this pandemic, we expect that there has to be that constant communication. Maybe how often do we communicate with the people that are working from home? How do we find out what they're doing? Are they in the right environment? Do we now know where they live? Because I remember in my organization, before this COVID translated our change of work, we never knew where even other people stayed. But because of this, when now we are organizing for this work from home arrangement, then we want to find out, where do these people live? Where do they stay? So that you're looking at the security aspect of if you are giving them some resources, for example, company machinery, how is that safe in terms of their usability, where they are? So then you find that that communication becomes very key. So right now, I think people are now communicating through Zoom, where now we are holding meetings. I don't know whether people are holding meetings anymore through Zoom. Are they holding meetings through their WhatsApp, or how are we holding those meetings? How do we communicate wherever we are? What is the sort of communication that we are? What sort of information are we communicating to our team? And how do we do that? How do you get feedback? And like before, where you'll come to a meeting, you'll ask Joseph to tell you exactly what is his opinion on this issue. They'll tell you directly. But right now, how are we dealing with this communication? How often do we communicate with our team? Or what is the best way to communicate with our team? Over to the team. Guys, are we there?
Yes, we are. Sorry, I was talking to myself. This is Betty. I forgot to unmute.
Yes, I'm still there, David.
Yes.
Yeah, like in our case, in the office, the IT team came up with a platform. We are calling it Teams, which we are able to hold meetings with people who are working from home. And of course, we have offices even outside the country. We are able to have daily updates on what is happening on the ground with other staff members who are not in the country. And we also trying to encourage, like any areas the staff would wish the management can improve, so that because we understand we are in this situation of COVID, on how well can we manage it together without somebody feeling left behind. That's my contribution. I don't know whether I got your question right.
Yes, I just wanted to know how are we communicating with these people? How are we linking up despite this pandemic?
Yes, and I've said in our case we are using a platform called Teams. It's like, yeah, it's like Zoom, but now it's mostly a call.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody join on the call. Yeah.
Yeah, when people can just join on call, then you have you hold your meeting.
Yeah.
You find out how they're doing and the rest.
Yes.
Good. David, you had something?
Yes, I was saying in my case, my background is from an academic situation.
Yes.
Specifically higher learning. So for us, a lot of Zoom, both continuing, I mean, the learning for the students, and also for the management in terms of handling, I mean, having meetings, communicating, and the like.
Right. Thank you for that communication. So in other words, that communication that we are having, we are looking at how do we make it more effective with the kind of people that we're dealing with? How convenient will that communication be so that it serves the purpose that we intended it to serve? Now, I don't know whether people have been facing this challenge where, you know, when people are working from home, you may send a communication via email or you send a communication via text. But you find it takes some time for them to respond. You call somebody and say, have you seen my email? They'll say, yes, I've seen. I'm going to respond. But they take a whole day for them to respond. But you know, anytime you call them, they're telling you actually they're working on it. So this work from home also in terms of monitoring, we find that it is a big challenge, especially if you're dealing with people that are not very responsible. They're not orderly in terms of what kind of work they need to do. And that's where you find that this, unless you have these systems that can enable you to track the tasks that they're supposed to do every day, then you may end up just communicating and you're not getting any feedback. For our organization, we use, there's a system we use, it's called Bitrix 24. Bitrix 24 is where every employee logs in. Every morning, those people who are working from home, they log into that system. It is embedded in the website. So they just log in. They have indicated the tasks they're doing for that particular day. And we are able, the supervisor is able now to monitor that activity. So you don't have to be calling somebody, but you already know what kind of roles or duties that this person is supposed to do on Friday or Saturday. Then he has to update that on the Bitrix, and you as a supervisor, it notifies you that, for example, Joseph has completed the task or Jen has done this and that. So that way, it's also one of the technological innovations that companies are using to ensure that they monitor how people are doing from wherever they are in terms of working from home. Then in terms of group activities, you as a leader, we are looking at how do you encourage people to work in groups? How do you encourage them to socialize? How do you encourage them to be open in terms of what they need to achieve as a team, as a department? How do you do that? Now, with the current scenario, how do you monitor these group activities? Unless now you adopt a group where system, like a project whereby people have a schedule whereby they meet and give feedback, then you find that it becomes a very big challenge for you as a leader. But nonetheless, there are several ways in which you can engage people in groups. In fact, I'll be excited to hear from the HRs that are, or the HR managers that are here, what is your take in terms of the team buildings that are always planned for? With this pandemic, how will you hold the team buildings? What ideas are you now thinking about? Because that's the conversation I've been having with my HR manager on how do we engage our team? How do we make them still, as much as they're working diversely, how do we make them to feel part and parcel of the rest in terms of a team building activity? How can that be done now using the technology? So I'll be interested to hear that from the members. What thoughts do you have? What sort of things are you thinking about in terms of embedding this in your innovative ways of dealing with people? Any idea? Someone is not muted, eh?
Hello.
Yes, yes, Joseph.
Well, in terms of team building, actually, you know, people used to look at team building as going out and, you know, do some activity that is physical and things like that. Now, for us, what we are trying to do this time is to have groups in WhatsApp. Yes. WhatsApp groups. We have formed WhatsApp groups for at least because we are in a manufacturing sector, so you find we have got both office staff and the working staff or the yellow staff. Now, what we have encouraged is that we have groups for supervisors, we have groups, and the supervisor himself also forms a group with his subordinates, and then yes, they share their common problems, they share their experiences, things like that. And so far, we are not doing so bad. And then during the days, if we have to have a meeting, of course, with social distancing in place, yeah, then if it is necessary, then we can have those meetings.
Good. You can see that that's a new and innovative way of being with people together.
Yes.
Yeah. One of late I've had there are companies that on a weekly basis they have come up with a morning teaser, an icebreaker every morning, like on every Friday. So people have to log in to their, if it's a Zoom account, they log into the Zoom account and just they have a teaser. Now this teaser, every week they have an activity that they do in terms of somebody says, for example, that just the photo of maybe your shoe. So they'll take the photos, then they just post them of the shoes they are wearing. Then people now react to the reasons why these people are wearing that way, just for them to just feel, to just give comments in terms of what they think. And also, people are also asked, what is it that they are missing most from work? Something that they're used to, what is it that they are missing? And then people who are working from office, they also tend to interact with those ones and tell them on how that is something that they can adjust to and all that. So there are so many innovative ways that people are coming up with. Others have come up with morning prayers, maybe weekly also. Everyone, regardless of the location, be it you have a branch in Zambia, Uganda, Tanzania. So all these people congregate in a particular hour, and they have to be visible. All of them have to be visible just to ensure that you feel your team. You're still a team as you envisaged earlier on. So that's some of the things that companies are doing. Then the next one is celebrations. Now, celebration comes in whereby leaders in organizations, or even us, when you are having people that work with us, then we must always acknowledge their contribution. This contribution may not be financially, but you're looking at this contribution on how well this person has enabled others to feel appreciated Maybe you join an organization and you feel unappreciated, but there's this person that holds your hand. They take you through the journey, and you can always look back and say, I'm excited. This guy has enabled me to actually understand this organization. Initially, I was feeling like I could not settle, but all that. So in that case, then we celebrate individuals' support. We celebrate what they do in our lives. And that's the essence of celebration. So that we should not delink celebration from the lifestyle. Because at times, we tend to forget that this celebration we tend to link it to only the company celebration, end of the year parties are celebrations. But we must take note that celebration must originate at the individual level. What sort of things have you learned, and who has enabled you to learn? That's the kind of celebration. So leadership must start with you. The way you intend to support other people, the way you want them to be elevated, the way you want to support them, the way you encourage, the way you coach is an aspect of leadership. So leadership may not necessarily mean that you must be a HR assistant, you must be the HR manager, you must be the HR director. But it's the position that you are in. How well do you influence people? How well do you make people buy into your ideals? How do you make people to admire you, admire what you're doing, feel that you should mentor them? What sort of things do you exhibit? That's in terms of celebration. So we expect you to exhibit that kind of characteristic so that people can look at you and you become a model for them. Then challenges. A leader. Normally, there is this story of the lion and the sheep. Now, the story of the lion and the sheep shows that a herd of sheep led by a lion vis-a-vis a herd of lions led by a sheep. Which one do you think will be successful? Between a herd of sheep led by a lion and another herd of lions led by a sheep. Between the two teams, which army, or between the two armies or teams, which one do you think will conquer the other?
Herd of sheep led by lions.
The herd of sheep led by a lion.
Yes.
Okay, what is your justification for that?
Lion is courageous.
Yes.
He knows what he wants and he targets what he wants. And so the followers will exactly know what is expected of them.
Okay. So that's a leader. So in terms of your perspective is that an army of sheep led by a lion will definitely succeed.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other opinion from the rest? Anybody with a contrary opinion? All right, so we can proceed. So in that case, the army of sheep led by a lion, even the sheep, you know, a sheep will always be led anywhere. You can even, because you have you as a person who is herding the sheep, you can take them to the slaughterhouse. But if for them, they believe in whoever is leading them. So in this case, if the lion with its courage, with its resilience, with its energy, and with its what we call go get it, is what makes now that army to be successful. In other words, we expect that leaders will give their people challenging roles and give them that impetus, give them that energy that they must succeed, that we must achieve this, we must deliver this for you to, or for us to succeed as a team. Then number 5 is that successful leaders or leaders must not isolate themselves. They should not put themselves in ivory towers, but they should be in areas that are accessible. They should actually enhance that aspect of openness. And that's why you can see most companies nowadays, or most organizations, they have this open office arrangement. Now, the open office arrangement allows people to freely interact without having somebody hiding in an office. I don't know whether last year there was a case where there is a certain manager who died in the office because he used to be in a closed office. So whenever people are opening the door, they thought maybe he's just having his nap. But after 2 days, they realized that this person actually died. Reason being, he had isolated himself from the rest. Well, if that person was sitting in an open space, I don't think it will even take hours for people not to have realized that he's not feeling well. So that's the essence of a leader. So a leader is always that person that is open, allows that open interaction with the rest. And normally there is a feeling that, but that goes with the culture of the organization. There are people who always feel free to greet others, but we have others who, unless you prompt them, they cannot greet you. But usually that's also an aspect of personality. But it's always believed that for you to be a leader, or good leaders are people that they communicate with others, they feel free, they greet, they share greetings and all that with their fellow workers. That way, you're already creating a sense of belonging. You are creating a sense of oneness just by extending that greeting to other people. Then leaders also avoid politics of blame. Because when you allow this politics of blame game, then that means you as a leader, you want to take credit, but you don't want to take accountability or responsibility. Yet, we expect that a leader must always take credit, but also be accountable. That's how a successful leader should be. So that I don't wake up and say that John is supposed to have done this, but since he didn't do it, yet he belongs to my department, then it's not me, it's not our department, it is him. Let him carry his cross. That way, then we fail as leaders. So we should always avoid those unnecessary controversies as leaders. Then on the same note, leaders must allow for that openness, the democratic way of leadership. Meaning, let us listen more and speak less. Do you know why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth? Do you know that? So the reason why we have the 2 ears is that we should actually listen more and speak less. But ironically, there are people that will want to speak more and listen less. So in that case, then you are defeating the concept of open leadership, meaning you are trying to exhibit the Hitler approach, which does not work anyway nowadays, because it's not about just telling. We have people who tend to just have the telling approach, telling, instructing, without necessarily having to listen. So we expect we coexist as a mentor and a mentee, so that we are able to listen, we are able to get the different opinions, regardless of whether we agree or disagree. But what is important is, have you heard that person? That view may be unpopular, but what is more important is that person given the chance to be heard? Have we listened to them? Okay. Then leaders also have to exhibit fair treatment for everyone. So in other words, we're just looking at giving people equal opportunity. Leaders who are respected, leaders who are successful, tend to exhibit this kind of feature, whereby they ensure that people feel that they have been given a chance, there is no discrimination, and whatever decision that has been taken is actually an impartial kind of decision. People have been given that chance to exhibit themselves. So then that brings us to the question of what are the main characteristics of leaders. So if you look at whatever we've discussed, then it summarizes these characteristics of leaders that we have. But perhaps we can just look at the 5 main characteristics from the discussion that we've had. We just pick 5, then we proceed to the next slide. So over now to the team. What are the 5 main characteristics of leaders? If you're summarizing them, what can you come up with from all those things that we've discussed? Responses?
A leader should be a good listener.
Sorry?
I'm saying one of the characteristics is that a leader must be a good listener.
Yes. The leader must be a good listener.
Leaders should be honest and have integrity, have confidence.
Integrity, honesty, right? Any other?
A good communicator.
Good communicator. Very true. Any other? Those are 4, 5. So a good listener, somebody who is integrity is not questionable, somebody who is honest, somebody who is a good communicator and listener. Those are 4.
Okay, this is Jane.
Yes,
Can you
Jane?
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I was going to say that a leader should be a people person. You should be able to relate with other people in your capacity as a leader.
Right. So Jane says a leader should be people-centric,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, people-centric.
This is Siad.
Yes.
A leader should be trustworthy and a person who is ready to delegate tasks to his team and encourage them to do.
So somebody who is trustworthy and he encourages people to do what? To achieve something. So that means that means he's a positive thinker, isn't it? Positivity. When you encourage people, that means you believe that it's something that can be attained. They can do it better. So you believe in them, okay? Lastly, one last one.
Just to add on me.
This is Siad again. A leader should also a person, right? The people is the first before even the strategy. Should be a leader, a person who is thinking that way.
Yes.
I also think a good leader should have full control of his emotions. So he should have high emotional intelligence.
Good. Emotional intelligence, very important. High EI.
Just to add on what has been said,
yes,
I think a leader should also have self-discipline, because listening is an aspect of respect. They should also be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all based on character.
Absolutely.
I also think a good leader should also be empathetic, should be able to empathize, not sympathize, but understand what his team members are going through, and
Empathetic.
Yes.
That's also correct, because you must always put yourself in that situation where you say, now that we want to make this decision as a leader, if I'm that person who is down there, how will I feel in terms of this decision? And that's what informs the kind of actions that will be taken now based on a particular strategic direction that one will have wanted to take.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
I wanted to add something.
Yes.
That a leader must be someone of high integrity, able to accept responsibility for mistakes.
Yes, in fact, we look at people who are accountable. We want leaders that are accountable, meaning you take responsibility for your team. There's no way you can be a leader. Then when it comes to the failures of your team, then you start mentioning names. The expectation is you bite that bullet, and you have to ensure that now your team work towards the expectations that you have set in place, instead of that blame game, because we've already mentioned that there should not be people who blame others. Thank you. I think we can move to the next slide, which now I've tried to link it with the kind of scenario that we are in. So I picked this quote, which says that the real antidote to epidemic is not segregation, but rather cooperation. In the fight against a virus, humanity needs to be closely or needs to closely guard their borders. What does that statement mean? It means that leadership is collective, and that's why a leader always has followers. And you have the followers, whatever decision that you take, you cannot come the following day and say, I didn't say this. And that's a common phenomenon with our political leaders, where they'll say something today, but the following day, they'll come and say, no, that was not me, I was misquoted. So in other words, for us to be leaders, then we must always look at bringing other people together. We must be bringing people together so that the energy that we put in vibrates with others. There is that law of energy and vibration. And normally, when I read there's a book by Kim Cunningham. Kim Cunningham says that the success of our lives or the success of any leader is actually 80% our attitude and 20% mechanics. The success of our leadership is about 80% attitude and 20% mechanics. What does, when you read about his autobiography, he talks about why people fail, not because they don't have resources, but they fail because they don't take action. They don't have that aspect of saying, today I want to do this. They don't take the risks. And by being more of a risk-averse person, then it actually delinks you from achieving what you want to take. So in essence, whatever we do in life is informed by that, the aspect of the energy and vibration. The reason why you woke up today because there is something you wanted to achieve. You wanted to attend this training. Now, by you waking up and trying to put the things that you want to achieve for the day is now the vibration beat. And you can see that your energy informs the kind of things that you want to do. If you woke up and felt that I don't think I want to log into this platform, then in that case, you will not achieve an activity that you had slotted for today. But if at the end of the day, you can say that I wanted to attend a training, after that I wanted to go to do some shopping, after that I wanted to go and make my hair. So by the end of the day, if you'll have attained that, then you can say that your energy and vibration were actually coinciding. So the energy that you woke up with and the vibration that is giving you is what essentially gives you that energy, the gist for you to wake up and do what you want to do. So the aspect of looking at the collective role or the cooperation when you are faced with challenges in life or in leadership calls for that cooperation between different people. Hence, the question is, will leadership rise to the occasion? I'm glad from the conversation that we've had from you guys in terms of how you're handling the situation, how you're dealing with the challenges that come with this pandemic. But the question is, do you think this pandemic also gives us opportunities to act by building trust or even losing it? Have we had situations where now people are now worried about their jobs? The other day I was sharing with another CEO of another company who told me that he's been trying to implement work from home, but apparently employees are just coming to work. They'll come and give excuses. Oh, I don't have electricity, or sometimes my internet is not very strong. It's not very stable, and that's why I have to come to work. But the question is, I was asking him, is it the problem of people feeling insecure? Because at times, I may not feel comfortable working from home with the fear that at the end of this pandemic, the organization might feel that I am not needed, because maybe the kind of work that I'm doing does not necessarily require me to go to work, and then meaning even that work can be outsourced or it can be shared across. So those are some of the challenges that we as leaders, we need to ask ourselves. Are we able now to deal with that? So that conversation made me now to think that as we try to lead people from wherever they are, are we making them feel comfortable? Are we making them to feel that their work or their roles are not in jeopardy? Are they not going to, are they feeling that their work is still intact? Or that's why they have to come and appear at workplace, they want to say hi to their friends and all that? Is it because of the aspect of feeling that things are not very certain? They're a bit uncertain about the stability of their roles. So those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves as leaders to that perspective. Then what should the leaders do? What do we need to do so that we handle these situations? One is that leaders must be flexible, or they must be ready to learn. The situation calls for learning. And when we talk about learning, it means that you need to gather facts about things. If you have to make choices about who to work from home, how is that going to happen, then you must gather information to justify that. You cannot just wake up and say, tomorrow we want 10 people to work from home. You need to have determined the essence of that. How viable is it going to be? How are you going to monitor the people so that you don't end up calling people every day? You just want to call and hear, are they really working? You call somebody after 1 hour, you want to find out really whether they are working. It's because, one, you didn't collect the right information to ensure that when you're working from home, you have the right resources to monitor that kind of work. So we need to be very flexible, adaptive, and willing to make difficult choices. Now, difficult choices here could mean there are companies that have had to adopt salary cuts. That's a very difficult choice. But then, in the wake of this circumstance, you as a leader, you must stand out and guide people that actually the only way we need to navigate these, looking at the projection that we have, looking at our financials, is to do what? To have a salary cut. Or we need to have some people working from home, or we need to have people taking their leave days so that we reorganize our business continuity plan. So all those will be things that can emerge as leaders now try to come up with the best ways to navigate the pandemic challenges. Then, as a leader, you need to determine what is important. What is that you hold important in terms of prioritization? Because failure to do that, then the other team or the other members will be looking at you and wondering what sort of direction are you leading them to. So there has to be that aspect of clarity in terms of what is important for the business at the moment, what is it that can be done in the medium term, and what can be done in the long term. Right now, you may need to know, how do I negotiate with our clients? How do I negotiate with suppliers? The contracts that are coming to an end, I've seen most companies have not renewed contracts with companies they have been working with because maybe the contract was ending during this pandemic. Such decisions have been taken, having been informed by what sort of priorities is the business having at the moment in view of the situation. Then leaders must also have clear plans. What are the plans for the organization during and post-COVID? What do you want to do? Right now, I was asking, the other day I was asking our HR that now that you can see there are people who can work from home, when this pandemic is managed, are you still going to have them working back to the office, or we are going to implement the work from home, at least for a period of time, so that you don't necessarily have to have people present in the facilities? And what implication does that have now on the office requirement? Okay, so those are things that now they need to be in the minds of a leader. You need to see what sort of things are we going to achieve based on this pandemic. Does it give us new ways of thinking? Does it enable us now to expand our thought? Does it make us to look at businesses differently? There are people who never used to advertise online. They used to do the physical marketing. You go knock to an office, you talk to the clients physically. Right now, the pandemic has completely made that impossible. So it means now you have to look at better ways of interacting with clients. Now that becomes your plan, that from today, we now need to change the way we are interacting with clients, the way we are marketing our products. Then you need to leverage on the teams. Ensure that you look at, like in line with what I've said in terms of the importance, are there people that can work from home very well? Do we have essential services that need to be at the premises? That's now leveraging on the team. Who are these people that we can use for them to do digital marketing? How do we ensure that the facilities that we have are utilized amicably with regard to that? So that's the essence of also understanding the issues of this as leaders. Then leaders need to communicate with credibility and optimism. I had somebody saying that leaders they must encourage people. They must be people of integrity. That's now the credibility aspect. So we don't expect a leader who appears like they're not sure of what they're saying, or leaders who are cowards. We expect leaders who can communicate the message. Look at Martin Luther King. He gave hope to those people. It was that aspect of that drive that you can do it, we'll overcome this, that leaders are supposed to portray. I've never seen anywhere where somebody has been punished for communicating or for being communicating so much. Meaning, communication is very key. Communication will make sure that people understand what you're doing to avoid the aspects of rumors and all that, because rumors tend to destroy the credibility of whatever you communicate. But anytime you communicate, people tend to follow what you're doing, and they feel part and parcel of the organization, because it gives them that sense that they are part of the organization. That's why certain decisions have to be communicated to them. So we expect you to be realistic, but also positive. Another thing is that you must be authentic. You should not forget that people trust you and follow you because of what you do, what you exhibit, how you do it, how you communicate, how you make decisions, how you embrace them. That's the aspect of authentic. So they understand that whatever, for example, Jane says, Jane has done her own research, and she understands that this action that she's taking is the action for the best of the rest of the team. Then you should also be able to manage yourself. Now, this is where emotional intelligence comes in. Emotional intelligence, that you must manage yourself. Do not allow your emotional deficiencies to affect how you interact with others. Good leaders will always know that I have a weakness, and therefore, if I feel that I'm irritated, I would rather not go to that meeting. I would rather take time, have cool down and come back. There are different ways in which people react. I don't know whether people will be willing to share. Sometimes when you feel that things are just not working very well, how do you react to that? Are you that person who will walk out of the office? Are you that person who will look at somebody to talk to? Are you that person who will keep quiet? Are you that person who will become moody and everyone will see that you're not happy at all and things are not working? How do people react? Over to you guys. How do you react when things are not working for you? You feel agitated, you feel irritated. How do you react? Because we want to see, in terms of managing yourself, how do you manage yourself so that it doesn't have a spillover effect to other people that you're working with?
We have seen bosses who know when they have a bad day, and they say today that don't even try to go to his office. He is in a foul mood. Now, as a leader, that should not be seen. That should not be seen. You should be able to manage your emotions and be in the now, because we don't know what has happened to you, and we are surely most likely do not want to know. So just be balanced. And if you felt it was so bad, then you should have stayed away and then come when everything is calm.
Yeah. Interesting. Actually, you hear people saying, how is the boss today? Then when they're told that today, don't even move closer, they'll keep off. So it means that's a sort of leader who does not manage themselves very well. Any other opinion?
I have another opinion.
Yes.
I think you had asked on how we really approach the issue of our emotions
Yes.
at work.
Yes.
To be honest, most of us HRs, our emotions are never right to the employees. Because you find an HR office is somewhere where employees go to, they're like, what? They really fret before they come to the offices. Because either they expect somebody to smear them, what they expect is not what we portray to them. So most of the time, we are never in check with our emotions. And we try to really throw our weight. I mean, I am the HR. You must feel me. And when we are angered, they see it. We don't manage our emotions well as HRs, and that is happening even to me. It happens to me, and I'm working on it.
Yeah, true. So whenever somebody is told that you need to see the HR, the first thing they start looking at, what have I not done? Or what is that I didn't do? It's like you start now introspecting yourself. What is it that I've not done right? Because going to the HR is like going to the Hague. I've had others even saying that that's an office of Hague. It's like a judgment office, which shouldn't be the case. But those are interesting scenarios. Then we have empathize. Empathize, where we say basically that when people, the way in which we are handling these people, we must always have that human aspect. Empathy is just basically having the human aspect in whatever action you're taking. Feel them, just feel them as they are. For example, if you see this person coming to work and they're not in the right mood, do you always put yourself in that? Do you think that maybe they have a problem? Or are you that person who will tell them that I want to see that kind of face again? You either smile or you go home. There's a time there was a case at the reception where the boss came and was not happy because the lady was not looking very happy. And said, I don't want to see this face again in front of the reception. You either go home or you smile. Regardless of, now that boss does not understand what could have made this person to feel the way they are. Because they came to realize that actually, it's not that the lady was moody, but the lady had some, what do you call them? These bees. The bees had actually beaten her. So her face was swollen. But now, since the boss did not have that time to understand exactly, the boss just thought that this lady is not smiling, but there was something else that had happened to her face, which means this person lacked empathy. They didn't look at what needs to be done. Good. So I want to move to corporate governance and how we integrate with leadership, governance and leadership. And some of the questions I will ask is between leadership and management, what's the difference, which you've already looked at? Then how do good leaders develop trust? Something that we've already looked at. Then we need to look at emotional quotient and intelligent quotient. That means we are looking at the emotional intelligence vis-a-vis the intelligent quotient. How important is emotional versus social intelligence to a leader? Do we expect leaders to have the two? In other words, do you expect somebody who has EQ and IQ that is aligned to make sure that this person is effective? When you look at organizations, how do we measure effective organizations versus ineffective organizations? Then how do we establish that a board is run in the right way? Those are the questions that, as we delve now in terms of governance, I want us to link that to leadership. But as we do that, there's this question that I wanted you to look at, or this statement, that people always like when you portray your real self and be the real you. This is because studies have found that replicas don't sell for as much as the genuine. Meaning, as a leader, don't play the good. Don't be that good person when you're not good. Always exhibit, if you are a firm person, let's know that Jenny is a firm person when it comes to decisions, and therefore we'll have to stick to that. But don't be that person that wants to embrace other people. So today you want to appear like, because this is my friend, I'll not punish them. But I'll be a bit lenient when it comes to executing my decisions. In that way, then that will judge you harshly when it comes to executing to other people. So that brings us to corporate governance section. And you'll find that whatever we've discussed in terms of leadership is what informs governance. Problems of governance can always be traced to poor leadership. They can be traced to lack of emotional intelligence. They can be traced to problems to do with integrity, problems to do with accountability, and also problems to do with the lack of understanding of the needs of the stakeholders. So the stakeholders here could be the employees, it could be the suppliers, it could be the managers, it could be the customers. So our inability to understand them is what can actually affect the governance of this organization. So corporate governance is basically that interaction between the board of directors and the stakeholders in general. As you can see, that photo just gives us that view of the board of directors. But the actions, the decisions that they make must always put cognizant of the interests of the various stakeholders. Whatever they make should always look at how is the customer going to be affected? How is this going to affect our employees? How is it going to affect our leadership? How is it going to affect our clients, suppliers, and the rest, and even the government? So in that case, whatever action they do must always have a reflection on the rest of these aspects. So why do we need corporate governance? One, corporate governance, as we look at the board of directors, the board of directors are now, they actually oversight on the management of the company. So we have the top of the board of directors. Below that, we have the CEO, the general managers, the departmental heads, the directors, and the employees. So what they're doing is, whatever activities they're doing down here at the organizational level must always be integrated with the actions of the board. In other words, there is nothing that can be done at the lower levels without the approval of the top management and consequently the approval of the board. Hence, it ensures that there is efficiency. And how do they do that? Whenever there is a project to be done, that requires approvals. Approvals will mean there are resources. So that provision of resources must be approved by the governance structures. Then, corporate governance also ensures transparency with a balanced economic development. So there is no way the board can approve HR's budget to take people to Dubai. Well, the first question they'll ask, you want to take these people to Dubai? Where did you take them last year? What is it? What is the difference? Why do you want to take them to Dubai this time? And how much is it going to cost? What are we going to benefit from this? If we take them to Dubai, are we meaning that they'll come back more energized and they'll perform better? So those are some of the questions that they'll be asked. So the board will always look at transparency. Are we doing things within the premise of the organizational structures? Then they also ensure that the interests of the stakeholders are safeguarded, whether minority or majority. So when it comes to dividends declaration, they'll ensure that if it's they're giving a percentage of 10% or 9%, that 9% applies to all. They will not say that if you are a major shareholder, then you'll get a higher percentage. So they ensure that whatever actions are taken safeguard the interest of other shareholders. Then the governance also ensures that the shareholders fully exercise their rights. For example, the right to vote and the right to withdraw their votes, the right not to continue in that kind of corporation to withdraw their shares. All those rights have to be there, and the board takes cognizance of that. Like now, if you belong to a circle, for example, the circles you have your rights so that you have to appear in those annual general meetings. You need to make your decision based on that, on the collectiveness of that. So that's where governance also comes in very strongly. Then Governance also ensures that there is protection of social and institutional aspects. Social aspects of social gains, how are they embedded within the scope of that? Then also corporate governance encourages trustworthiness, the moral as well as ethical environment. Now, this is where we hear corporate governance CSR or the CSI, corporate social investment. Nowadays, companies have devised a way, they're saying it's a corporate social investment. It's not a responsibility, meaning you're looking at engaging in that activity for the sake of gaining something. So it's more of an investment. So if today we decide that we are going to do campaigns for now health in terms of people to access medical health or the medical services, we are doing it because we want people to understand our brand, so that as we do that, we're also selling to them the products that we have. That's now the corporate social investment. And like when people are talking about the responsibility, where you just go and plant trees. Nowadays, it is sort of targeted that whatever you're doing is not only going to have an impact on the brand image, but also it's going to attract the right people for your business. So you're doing that for the aspect of bringing business, and also you're doing it because you want also to get customers for your products or services. So the board of directors are therefore, their role is to execute or steer the company and deal with the problems of the agency. This diagram gives that overview of now how the board, the directors, and the management of the company operates. So in corporate governance, we have what we call the agency theory. Now, the agency theory can be described using this diagram, whereby you can see we have the principal and the agent. So the principal are the owners of the company. They are the shareholders of that company. Now, the shareholders employs the board of directors. So this board of directors perform the functions on behalf of the owner. In other words, as a director, so directors, we have executive and non-executive directors, but depending on the kind of setting that the business is in, companies that are listed, they're accountable to the Capital Markets Authority. State corporations, they're accountable to SCAC. In that case, they are governed by the Mongozo Code of Governance. While CMA, they are those that report to Capital Markets Authority, the listed companies, they're guided or they're governed by the Act, the CMA Act. So in that premise, you find that there are certain principles that govern how directors should do their work. And looking at the roles of the boards down there immediately after this discussion. But what I'm bringing out is that these directors, they do whatever they are doing, and now they are accountable to the shareholders. During the AGM, the directors must present a report to the shareholders and tell them that for this financial year, this is what we've attained. This is what we did. These are the projections that we achieved. These were the challenges that were there. In that case, they're being accountable to the shareholders, who are now the owners of the company. So the directors will therefore perform the roles on behalf of the shareholders to ensure that that company grows, it makes profit, is sustainable, and also it meets its objectives as per the strategic plan. So under the agent, where we have the directors, then we have, I've mentioned about the executive directors and non-executive directors. Now, executive directors is like the CEO, meaning they have the executive role of running the company or managing the company, or it could be the managing directors or the general managers, provided they sit in the board, then their role is of an executive. But we have non-executive directors who are appointed also to run the company, but their role, from the word, they are supposed to be independent. Independent directors play a role of ensuring that this board is balanced in terms of the skill, in terms of decision making, in terms of providing a balance. So their role is to ensure that they put the director or the managing director to task, especially in some of the decisions that they have taken, meaning they have that oversight role. And when it comes to voting, then independent directors or these non-executive directors are supposed to play a key role in coming up with decisions that do not harm other stakeholders. Otherwise, if that decision is taken by the managing director, then you find that that's where you hear people complaining that the company or the board has ratified a decision that is affecting most of the stakeholders negatively. So there has to be, in terms of the codes that we have, the codes provide for the composition of the board of directors, whereby they talk about between 6 or 7 to 9 members of board of directors. But the composition of that board of directors must have the independent who are non-executive directors and the executive directors. And also that independence is like a third of them must actually be independent. Reason being, a third of the board of directors will bring in specialties, like you need somebody who understands finance in the board. Otherwise, the finance manager will come and present reports that are not questioned because they have already agreed with the director on how the finances should look like. But on the board, we need to have somebody who is so independent, somebody well-versed with finance so that they can question, they can interrogate the statements that have been brought before them so that they get the clear picture of the finances. So ideally, this gives the scope of how this corporation works. So the composition of the board, as I've said, is executive and non-executive directors. It has to be between 7 to 9 members. A third must be independent. And maybe to weigh into that, an independent director is that person that is not involved directly with the running of the organization. They are not involved in any way. They are not suppliers to the company. There's no way you can become an independent director or a non-executive director if you are reporting to that or you are supplying to that company, because you'll be affected by, you'll not be impartial at all because of the interest that you have. For example, if I'm supplying water to the company, and here I am part of the board of directors, when it comes to, even if I've increased the cost of water, and that proposal comes to the board, do you think I will decline it? I'll automatically pass it because I have an interest, or I have people who are interested in that business. So we ensure that as per the corporate governance principles, that a third of them, 1/3 should be non-executive directors, so that they give independent judgment. Independent judgment by the board is very crucial. So the board is tasked with ensuring that the corporate strategy is aligned. They ensure the effectiveness of the corporate governance, selecting, compensating, and all that. But more effectively, the role of the board can be analyzed in 4 areas. 1, does everyone in the organization understand what is important? Meaning, we'll task the board and ask them, whatever you're sitting to do you think those actions that you are taking, are they clear to the people that are working in the organization? Does the organization and individuals have the capability to achieve it? Have you given them resources enough for them to achieve that? Do people want to do the right things for them to, and are they aligned to the organizational direction? So those are some of the questions that we ask ourselves, or we ask boards in terms of their responsibility. Are we having everyone on board? Do people understand what is being done? Or do they just hear that the board sat and that information does not trickle down so that people understand their responsibilities? So directors will get into trouble if they don't carry out all these. So whenever we ask these questions and they are not able to answer, then they find themselves in trouble because they are not able to be honest. Some of them also engage in criminal wrongs. They're not people of integrity. They also become dishonest, they're ignorant. Some of them, they lack independence, in the sense that if a director is very close to the CEO, they may find it difficult to speak their mind. Or at times you find these board directors have been proposed by the CEO. You know, if I propose a board member, that means this is a person that I know. Or it could be somebody that I have an interest in. And whenever I propose them and they become part of the board, chances of them being independent are very slim. It's because of that, we call it the halo effect. The halo effect, whereby you'll always look at this person from the positive, but you never look at them from the negative. So I'll not stand up strongly as a director to question the work of the CEO, just because I'm always regarding him as a good person. So in that case, it will influence my independence, and therefore it will definitely affect how we deal with these board decisions. Then also we have a problem to do with board business performance, whereby the board is not performing. Some boards actually have no clear performance evaluation, especially the boards that are not accountable to the shareholders at all, because those reports are not clearly scrutinized to establish whether it's being done in the right way or not. Surprisingly, we have also companies that do not have board leadership. You find that they only have the CEO and maybe one member of the board. So in that case, that board is not constituted legally. So there's no board in essence, actually. Then board members staying too long to the boards. Somebody has stayed, there are some companies which actually do not conform to these, the period of which you need to serve on the board. Because the number of years that somebody is supposed to serve on a particular board should not exceed 6 years, meaning 3-year period that is renewable. But I've seen companies where people have been the chair of those boards from the time they joined the organization up to now. So somebody has reached retirement and they're still the chair of the board. So in that case, these people, they tend to develop what we call a narrow vision. And therefore, they cannot bring in any new ideas that can assist the corporation to excel. Then we have problems of internal politics and personal conflicts. Then also we have ineffective board organization and processes where boards make decisions that violate the framework. If you recall the case of Imperial Bank, where the directors awarded themselves money or loans, but they went against the guidelines of the board. Meaning in that case, people conspire. And therefore, through that conspiracy, they tend to make decisions that bring down the business. And the case of Imperial is a good example to that, where the directors, as much as we've given them that autonomy to run the business or to run the bank on behalf of the shareholders, but they went ahead and violated some of the regulations, and that brought about the fall of the business. So the government has a role when it comes to oversight, and I've already mentioned. So one, for state corporations, they are answerable to the State Corporation Advisory Committee, and they're governed by the Mwongozo Code. So this Mwongozo Code stipulates the guidelines within which state corporations must operate, and always they must report to SCAC. They have to give a report on this or to SCAC on how they have been able to apply those guidelines within that period of time. That's the essence of how that works. Then we have the capital markets. Then we have the NGO board now for those companies that are non-profit making. Now, just to touch on state corporation guidelines, when you look at the Mwongozo Code, so Mwongozo Code was developed as part of the executive order by the president in 2015, with the reason behind state corporations that were collapsing. And this code was developed to ensure that it guides on how the boards operate, how the state, actually the parastatals, the state corporations operate in terms of appointment of the directors, where now it is clear on how long somebody should hold a position of a director. Transparency and disclosure of the activities of the state corporation, accountability, risk management, all these must be reported now to State Corporations Advisory Committee, SCAC. So the reporting must be done in all these 8 areas. So every corporation, state corporation, always reports these, the progress on all these to the SCAC. And that means SCAC is now able to monitor whether the corporation is having problems with stakeholders, whether it is having problems with compliance, because they will indicate in terms of compliance with these regulations, this is how we are, and this is the plan that we have to make us compliant. Then the Capital Markets Authority also has those ones where all the listed companies will always report every financial year on the progress of this, on these guidelines. How are they dealing with the board operations? How many board members are there? What is the period of tenure? Have you had any change in board governance and all that, commitment to good governance, rights of shareholders, all that. So all this is an aspect of now how the government comes in to ensure that corporate governance is enforced. But you'll realize that now companies that are not listed companies, neither state corporations, and they're not NGOs, then you find that those are corporations that, or those are companies that you find are very risky, because one, they are not accountable to anyone. Like family businesses or businesses that are owned by a few people who do not conform to these guidelines, you find that they operate businesses that are risky, and clients are always not very sure about what direction the corporation will take. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the emerging issues, which of course there are things that we are clear on. Board diversity, which I've talked about. The board composition should ensure that it has a mix of independent and the executive directors. There has to be risk management, accountability, investor confidence, and also the board must be compliant. They should be ready to adapt to the social, political, and economic dynamics. Right now, boards are expected to amend their regulations with regard to meetings, attending of meetings, adoption of minutes, because they can't meet physically. So there's now that aspect of having an addendum that allows for e-signatures. They also look at who calls for the meeting. So all those are things that now the boards have been told to actually come up with a review of their regulations to allow for these changes in how the board runs its operations. The same has actually affected the remuneration, because there is no way you remunerate the board member the same way they used to come for the physical meetings. So all those changes have come into force, and as an emerging issue under the social, political, and economic dynamics, then the boards have gone back to retrace some of the regulations so that they conform with the dynamics that have been brought about by the COVID pandemic. Hence, corporate governance is a dynamic process and is continually evolving and has no boundaries or limits. So to this end, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of our training today. Unless if there are any questions. Thank you very much. Any questions? Are we all there, or people have gone for lunch? You can see it's approaching 1.
We are there.
Yes, are we all there?
We are there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we are there.
Yeah, what I've done, I just summarized the aspect of corporate governance. Because usually governance is a very wide concept, unlike the way we handle it in class. So I just wanted to touch on a few things. But in case of any questions that you have regarding the course, then we can always discuss on the sidelines.
Okay.
So any reaction, any question?
I wanted to find out,
Yes.
if you have a private organization,
Yeah.
and you wanted to compose a board for it,
Yes.
do you do advertisement like the way you do public organizations? Is the composition the same? Or
Okay.
protocol
Yeah, I
for
can
it?
take that. Yes, if you have a private company,
Mm-hmm.
normally we advise private companies to go for the best practice.
Mm-hmm.
So the best practice corporate governance is that in terms of composition, you stick to the 7 to 9 members.
Mm-hmm.
Then, based on the kind of business that you have,
Mm-hmm.
you normally advise them to ensure that they have very strong directors, especially on the line of business,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can provide a lot of oversight and advisory when it comes to the strategic decisions of the business.
Okay.
Yes.
So
in the event that also, as you've said, if it's a private company, then they're not answerable to any of those bodies, but still, the shareholders must ensure that they have a clear reporting line, so that also they get that kind of report to understand that they have the right people governing or providing oversight to the running of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so normally you may not advertise. Companies that are financially well, they advertise.
Mm-hmm.
But what other companies have been doing is they do reference.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody will come and approach you and say, Jen, I can see you are the HR director. I would like to have you as an independent director in my HR committee.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about? So it's more of they do the referencing and they go ahead with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
Go faster. Let the lady go.
Ladies first. Okay.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I have a question.
Yes.
I haven't heard you touch on a conflict of interest for the board or something.
Yes.
But I really need your input on in an area.
Yes.
What happens when a member of the board has a company and you're recruiting or you're procuring services and they insist that their company are the companies to procure for that services? And how would you go about such scenario where you just think this is a conflict of interest and it's by the directors? How would you go about it? Because it's happening and it happens. But first, is it a conflict of interest? Second, how would you go about it?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, when it comes to that, starts from the board of directors nomination. The nomination committee, whenever they're doing the appointment of the director, one thing is the director is supposed to declare that they don't have any businesses associated. They don't have any company that trades with the organization that they want to be appointed. So that is usually the first step. So whenever you find directors who are trading with the company, then that's where it brings about the failure of the oversight role. Because already when I have an interest, that will mean that I'll be very partial when it comes to making decisions. So it's a practice that if you look at the codes are very clear that anybody appointed in those positions must not in any way, for example, my wife cannot have a business and trade with the company where I'm the director, because already that's a conflict of interest, because it talks about anybody family related should not be trading with the company, because that in itself will affect the impartiality in terms of making decisions. But I know it's happening because the kind of boards that are in place, they have not been formed based on the guidelines. You find even there's no nomination committee. The CEO is actually the nomination committee, where he just appoints somebody and brings now to the board for ratification, and that's where it causes that problem. So normally, the right way is that anybody must. There's a form on conflict of interest declaration where they have to sign. Then it's actually documented before they join the board. That's the best practice. But of course, People always have their own ways of navigating these guidelines. I've answered your question?
Yes.
All right. Then there was somebody else with a hand.
Yes, I wanted to find out.
Yes.
Thanks. That's what a very insightful presentation. First of all, Mr. Wanyama. I've always followed your sessions and I like them. You touched on the idea that there are some board members who are also the founder members, especially for the people coming from the NGO world like me.
Yes.
And you'd realize that for the last 40 or so years that the organization has been in existence.
Yes.
And then number two is that the Mongozo code.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's applicable to the NGO part, or it would be nice for someone to adopt it in reference to their ecosystem. Maybe you'd advise on those two.
Okay, Graphic, sorry. The first question, I missed you along the way. Maybe you can just take it again.
The first question was on the existence. Oh, there's some noise. The
of
first
the
question
founders.
was, yeah,
Yes.
on the founders.
Yes.
And you're saying that it will be nice to have them change over time. How do you go about that, or what's the implication of that? Because probably they say they are the vision holders or the mission holders. How would you go about that, or do you mix along the way, or how do you? What's your take on that?
Right. Thank you. I think that one applies mostly with the private companies and also NGOs. So when it comes to founders who are directors, what happens is the best practice is if there are three, assuming there are 3 or 4, and we are looking at the board composition being up to 9, then the board, in this case, they will ensure that they have these 4 that are the founders. It's advisable that they alternate within the period of tenure. So you can have the first 4, then these other 2 can actually be co-opted in the committees. Reason being, you have them in the committees, so next time when their tenure has ended, then also you have these other people who are serving as directors now to come in at the committee level. But usually, based on also the needs of people wanting to see how things are being done, you find that they don't want to take that kind of direction. But on the other side, the advice is they can have now 9 members. So these 4 can still remain as directors, but of course now they are more of executive directors to the running of the business, but they ensure that the other 5 or the other 4, because now they can have a general manager or the CEO who is not one of the founders, but if already the founders are running the business, then they can have these other 5 as all the 5 should be independent directors. That way, then these independent directors will actually provide a lot of check to the existing decisions by these founders. Otherwise, if they don't do that, then these founders are likely to continue with the same thinking, the same line of thought, without getting any independence from the other experts. So they now need to get experts to ensure that it governs them. When it comes to Mongozo Code, as I mentioned, it's more, it's actually a code that governs state corporations. That means the parastatals. For listed companies that are trading, they're governed by CMA, but for non-governmental organizations, their code is not yet ready, but currently they are just reporting to the NGO board. So, but when you look at the guidelines of the NGO board, they have just tried to marry what we have in SCAC, in Mongozo, plus what we have in CMA. The only difference is that when you look at the NGOs, they don't have shareholders, but they have guarantors and the rest. So you find that that's now the difference in terms of defining who are these shareholders when it comes to the NGOs. But well, in terms of reporting, most NGOs don't report to any of this, unless those ones that are clearly being governed by the NGO board. But when it comes to effecting or taking action with regard to maybe an NGO flouting a regulation, then that's not in place yet. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Asante.
Okay, thank you. Good. Any other person? Good. So I think if there's no other question, I can hand over to Dan. Dan, back to you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you guys for participating. And I was excited that we've made this period as engaging as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James Wanyama, for a beautiful presentation and a well thought out training. Thanks also to our participants who've participated in all ways, including giving suggestions and sharing best practices. Until we are very grateful for you finding time to participate with us. Our next training will be Saturday, that is Saturday the 20th, on emotional intelligence with Catherine Wamwangi. The price or the cost for those who participated today will be 2,000. And for purposes of closing this webinar today, if you are present and you had not made payment, kindly do so to the pay bill 850-850-313. The account number will be your ID number. The amount will be 2,500. The purpose for that, this will enable you to get your certificate and your CPD points. So it is very important for us to work together in that. Now until next week, when we have our training, but maybe I forgot a little bit. There is our website is achrp.biz. And whenever you open that, maybe the first thing you need to do is to bookmark the website so that for purposes of moving forward, you don't forget the website every now and then. Now, Sazigina, you may have forgotten your password. And when you go to recover password, you're wondering you're not receiving the email with your reset password instructions. What you need to do is to check your spam folder and it will route our messages from going to spam to your inbox. That way, you will find that the message with your password instructions was actually sent there. Whenever you will register for our webinar using achrp.biz, the moment we approve your training, you receive the webinar instructions via mail. But in case sometimes you do not have received that, never hesitate to contact me on 0722 300, that is 300245. You can contact me using text, calling at any time of the day, and also at night, and lakini sio usiku ile sana mpaka mtu amelala. Now, having said that, let's wish one another a very good day. Until next, I hope to see you next weekend on Saturday for the emotional intelligence training. And until then, we can wave goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye. Have a good day. Take care.
Bye-bye.
At the next time, those who had not opened their videos to always do that. It gives, at the workshop, real workshops, we usually see one another. It makes the training look like we are in a classroom situation and we are all participating. Hakuna kuficha video. You can mute the microphone, lakini the video you leave it on. It gives that very nice impression that the training is moving on very well. And you're welcome for lunch over here.
Virtually.
All right. Virtual lunch.
Karibuni sana.
Thank you.
Yes. Loisa, how is Mombasa? Unmute your microphone.
Sorry, I left Mombasa. I'm in Bondo.
Wow. We should invite us offer.
Please do come. Karibu sana. There's plenty of fish.
Yeah, I've known Loisa for close to 5 years now. She's been with us as we conduct our trainings, and she's been very supportive. Luse Kenyaki, I can see you there. You are happy?
Yes, I am.
She was hiding before. Eh?
Yeah, karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you. I enjoyed myself a lot.
Eunice, it's okay. Eunice.
Yes.
Yes, say something.
How are you? I'm glad to.
Wakati after training, yeah, for those who did not speak, Sasa, we can chat.
We need to hear their voice, actually.
Yes.
Just to affirm that they're with us.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad to have joined the training. Yeah, I think this is a great family, and I knew Mr. Wanyama from my college days at CHRM. It's a good reconnection. And I'm looking forward to many other training. Like I told you earlier on, I'd like to actually take the trainings that have happened in the past. So I'll still call you after we shut down this whole process.
Very well.
Yeah, I'm really interested.
And thank you, Eunice. This is what I have to say for those who've listened to Eunice speak. One, all our trainings are recorded live on YouTube. Why am I saying that? If you go back to your portal now, you'll see the YouTube link to this particular training. You can watch, or you can watch it again at your free time. So you never have to miss anything.
Yeah.
In fact, one positive attribute to COVID-19, I'm sorry to say that, is that it has introduced us to a whole new way of doing things. I used to get a lot of questions from people. Hey, how can we get our trainings recorded? How can we see live trainings? This is the way to go. Eunice Mutave. Eunice, unmute your mic and say something. Can say hi. Unmute your mic. Hi, Hawa Godana. Unmute your mic. Hawa.
Yeah, I'm okay,
Yeah,
and I've
very
really
good.
enjoyed the session.
Yeah, and I've really missed you so much.
Me too, thank you.
Yeah, we've not met for several months now.
Yes, we haven't.
So, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Onesimus Mutua from Turkana, is it? Unmute your mic. Onesimus. Yes, very good.
So good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I've enjoyed the session. Thank you very much, Mr. Wanyama and Gasheru for organizing the program.
Hey, hiya. Joseph Gashero, thank you for organizing this. Now, Onesimus, the organizer is Dan. Dan is myself. And
you're not Gasheru.
Gasheri is a participant. He's a stakeholder.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe ni kiherehere yake.
Now tell me, Onesimus, you are still in Turkana?
West Pokot and Turkana. Bado niko huko tu.
Na tumepoteanwa sana. We've not met like for, is it 2 years?
But you locked Nairobi. You locked Nairobi. There is no way we access you guys in Nairobi.
No, we will. We are hoping the lockdown will end soon. Then we will resume our normal workshops at the hotel.
Yes.
Sawa sawa. Now
where we used to meet.
Kabisa.
Yeah.
Dusa, you want to say something? Unmute your mic.
Hi, I'm
Yes.
Lydia. I'm Lydia Moneki Ndusa.
Oh.
It was a wonderful workshop, though I missed out the first session because of logging issues, but it was very good.
Well, welcome. Say something else that has been said.
I was just saying I missed out the first session.
I'm saying you say something else, Moniki.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I enjoyed it.
Forget about the training. Say like you are happy to be here. You see now.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
Yes.
I was just wondering the next session, the next class. Maybe next time we start early.
Yes.
Yeah, because I joined at around 10:30, but I couldn't get through. So next week, maybe we can try earlier.
Okay, and one other thing, never miss a training because you didn't have money. That is wrong. You join in, pay later. It is, I've watched for the last 4 years what I've seen. I've had people now call me after December to ask me, hey, then can we access past trainings? Nilipe saa hii. So the best practice would be every time we have a training and you want to access that training, let me know. Participate in the training. Today you don't have money, tomorrow you have money. You make payment then, is it? Yeah. Hiya. Grace Goge, Grace Goge, you've not said anything. Grace Goge, I think she's gone for lunch. Patricia. Patricia, are you there? Unmute your mic. Lois, you know Patricia?
Yes, I think I know her.
Yeah, she makes our she makes our WhatsApp group very lively. And she doesn't want to say anything now.
I want to see her. I've never met her.
Yeah.
I want to see Patty.
Monica Kiarie. Monica.
Hi.
I wish, Monica, you had unmuted your video. Huh? Monica is from Membu. I guess she's unmuting her video.
Sorry, I'm not able to unmute my video, but hi everyone. I have really enjoyed. I'm really looking forward for this lockdown to end. At least we can meet in the hotels. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, Monica. And say hi to Anita.
I will.
Yes, say hi to her. And say hi to Paul. Is it?
Yes, I will.
Please. Now, Evelyn Oliet, I can see you. Say something. Are you there?
Then.
Yes.
Have you seen a chat from Eunice Mutave?
Oh, let me see.
Try to unmute her from your end.
Oh, sorry. Okay, as I'm doing that, Evelyn, are you saying something? There. Okay. I guess she's not able to unmute herself. But don't worry, Eunice, you are now not muted. Can you speak? Hi, Eunice Mutabe. Okay, very well. Now, Saizi, I don't know why we can't hear. James, can you hear Eunice?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can hear you.
No, can you hear Eunice?
No.
Okay, I don't know why. It is all right. Now, what we do? We need to move on, and I know we all want to go for lunch. Everyone has said something except Joseph Gacheru, and then we meet on Saturday. What do you think?
Cheryl just has one issue that you don't have a break time in this. Why can't we arrange a people? I've been sitting here holding my brother for all this time. I would suggest maybe a 10-minute break in between the.
Yeah. Yes. James, you hear that?
Yes.
And I'm wondering what happened to the break.
I was caught up by time.
Yeah.
The next time I think I'll schedule it so that I have a break in between that can allow people to stretch, take water. And also,
by the way,
people are working from home.
Yes.
Maybe they need to give some instruction also. So during that break, I think we need to have it.
Yes, it's important.
Yeah.
And that is why the video was very important, so that you can ask people to stand up, stretch yourself a bit, rotate around some. So it becomes an actual class.
And lastly, you need also to have a group photo.
A good what?
A group photo.
A group photo for the class that attended.
That is the point. That is the point.
Yes.
Sure.
So, Eunice Gechuke, I'll be waiting for your call as agreed.
Yeah.
Then we will be able to do as agreed.
So I'll allow you to take your lunch, and then I call you in the afternoon.
I hope you guys mumesikia tunaongea in code language, that to do as agreed. So bye everyone.
God bless you. Bye.
Be blessed.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.